Actually, I think my main reason was more like I needed to find myself back. Because I think as a mom, right, sometimes you tend to really forget that you have a life of your own. I used to live my life purely for my children.
Welcome to the Authentic Advisory Podcast. Hi, Alvina.
Hello,
Looking good with
my
your,
hair.
I don't know, half-finished hair.
Yeah, half
Is
the
it?
chair. Later, another 1 hour session.
So it was supposed to be pink or purple?
Purple.
You
Yeah,
used to
yeah.
have pink hair, right?
Yes. My
Okay.
hairstylist decided I needed a break from pink, so decided okay lah,
Yeah.
let's go to the next color. So purple lor. Okay.
So it's gonna be lighter, slightly lighter.
You're gonna yes, it's gonna be
than
lighter.
this.
Yeah. Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Is there a reason? Like, is it just a thing that you want to make it like have colored hair and whatnot?
Actually, I've been doing this coloring of hair for quite a while already. In fact, previous times it used to be even more aggressive. Like I
How
used to
aggressive?
change like every 2-3 months I would change one color, and it's really like totally different. So I have to re-bleach to remove all the excess color from before to another color. So yeah, I've done pretty much the entire rainbow and more, I guess. I don't think there's a single color that I've not touched lah. Yeah, I think correct that. I think the only color I've not done is orange, but
Orange.
that's like clown lah. So other than that, I pretty much done all other colors already.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
have to go back. I'm like going back the same circle again. Like
You finished the entire
yes,
all the different
finish
colors, right?
the entire
One
spectrum
cycle,
already. Yeah.
Okay. So have you always had colored hair like since I don't know how many years in industry right now? 16?
I'm going on to my 17 now. Yeah.
17. So
Yeah.
have you always had like colored hair since you first started?
In the initial years, okay, I've always had color hair since I was 18, but not crazy colors. So in my first maybe 10 years, I think I had like the very standard like maybe blonde at most, but then like the brown, a bit more angmo kind of colors lah. Then subsequently, I don't know why, I think I just got bored and all right. Then I just started to experiment a little bit more into like the blues and greens, but the blues and greens also is like more ashy kind, so it's not like the very vibrant.
So when they exploded into like
Honestly, it was when I became a mom, when I was becoming a mom, so when I was pregnant and stuff. Then I started experiment. Also because at that time I stopped work, right? So I really like took a sabbatical. And then I was like, anyway, I'm not going to meet clients. Then the only one that's going to see me is my baby, what? So okay lor. Then just went crazy lor. So I experimented all the time. After that, I got hooked already. Then like after that, when I think my hairdresser said, hey, why not you just do like normal color lah, like normal people lah. Yeah, then I was like, so I tried. I just did like blonde first.
Yeah.
And then also I was like, like so normal. So I couldn't and also because I think with short hair, right, it's very fun to experiment. I realized with long hair, because you can't experiment as much because you spoil your hair. Like
Short doesn't?
short, I cut it so often. I cut my hair once every month,
okay.
if not once every 2 months maximum.
Right.
Yeah, so my hair doesn't, I would say that thankfully my hair doesn't even have time to spoil yet before I go on to the next color already. So yeah, not so much lah, I would say. But have to put in time lah and effort to go and sit down there and get your hair color lor. So every time it's 3-4 hours. Yeah, so yesterday I did until 11:30 at night. So now I haven't even finished my hair. I have to like go another session later after this. Yeah.
They didn't continue because like they have to 关店 already.
Actually, it's way past overdue. They're supposed to close at 9 or 9:30. It's usually the latest. But then I insisted on coloring my hair lah. But I didn't know it would be so long because in the end my hair took a while. So in the end I left only about 11, close to 11:30. Then I so paiseh also. At first he was like, he even asked me like, do you want to finish it? Then I said like, how long more? Then he was like, actually about another hour. Then I was like, never mind, I think better go back lah. Because the next day he's still working some more. So I paiseh. So I was like, no lah.
No wonder.
I'll do tomorrow. So later.
So later go finish it up.
Yeah. So it'll be slightly lighter than this. Now it's very dark. Like for me, also it's too dark for my liking.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. I mean, your hair has always been the
talking point.
Yeah, it's always a talking point, right? Yeah. So tell me a bit, right? So one of the things I always wanted to ask. I mean, we know each other for a while now, but there are still questions. One of the things I really want to ask, right, is like, you were, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You used to work at what, A-Star?
Yeah, it's tough.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know obviously A-Star is probably like be a scientist,
Yes.
research, that kind of stuff,
Correct.
experimented. Yeah. So what do you do exactly? I don't know if you're allowed to say, but like maybe the scope, like is it like something explosive or like?
No. So actually, it was still my interest. So I think like, okay, I was actually doing hepatitis research. So hepatitis, I think most people will know is more related to the liver lah.
Mm.
Yeah, so I was doing a lot of liver research and everything like that. So previously, I actually studied in Australia, and I was doing like hepatitis C. So in Australia itself, hepatitis C is quite prevalent because I think they have drug users and everything. Which we don't have in Singapore, thankfully. But we have hepatitis B in Singapore.
Yeah.
And then so when I graduated and everything, I was also doing HIV work in Australia as
wow.
well. So when I came back, then I was just interested in viruses lah. Because like I mean, like such a small little stupid thing, but then it can cause so much havoc in our bodies, right? So I really thought it was very interesting lah. So I came back, continued with that. And then it was fun because like I don't know whether or not you know the experiments per se, but last time in science class there's this thing called the polymerase chain reaction.
Oh yes. PCR. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
So I was doing
holy shit, this is like, oh my
yeah,
god,
yeah,
so
yeah. So I
secondary
was
school
doing
for me.
PCR plus I was doing the reverse transcription, which is the opposite, which is not the opposite lah, but it's the RT-PCRs. Yeah. So I was doing
Still can remember.
PCRs and stuff like that. Yeah, I can remember lah, but like you asked me not to do the experiment, I'll be like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like I think forget already. But I was doing all those things so I was like growing cells and whatnot.
Damn.
It was fun. I was handling patient samples as well, so I worked with doctors in like some of the hospitals that were more focused on such research as well. Yeah, then but honestly, I was only in A-Star for about 9-10 months or so. Then after that, I retired from there and then came into this industry lah. Yeah.
So obviously I'm gonna ask you like what made you like leave, right? But I think
Okay.
before that, like was it hard to get in to like A-Star to begin with? Because like especially when I was younger in secondary school, A-Star is like wow, it's like 很难进 kind. I don't know, like at the point in time, was it like hard? Or maybe okay, first of all, let's not ask whether is it hard or not. Because maybe with your grades and you know your stuff, it could be easy, right? But I think I assume that there's a certain standard
I guess
or like
so,
a high barrier to entry.
Yeah, that's the thing. So not to sound like like a bit arrogant or what, but actually it was very easy for me. I only had one interview and I got accepted already. But but honestly, I also don't know whether or not because like they wanted me to do like this particular research.
Right.
It could really be at that point in time they were looking for someone involved or already had experience with hepatitis research. And I just happened to be that one person and I just graduated and everything like that. So I actually had it very easy. So my first interview with them, I got accepted already. In fact, it was the first interview that I had when I came back from Australia.
Right.
So I really didn't have any problems finding a job at that point in time lah. Yeah. So and in a way, if you want to say that whether or not like it's my grades, I don't think my grades were fantastic.
Oh no, would the people there like have to be smart? Do you like kind of like have to be a certain IQ or something like that, like to be there? Like I mean, if you look at the peers back then, I mean it was like years ago, right? But like
no lah.
No?
I don't think we
you have
were
to be like straight A's in bio, take PCME or whatever. I don't know.
No. So I just think everybody there were okay. Yes, I agree. We were all a little bit more studious than the average. I would assume so because science you definitely need a lot more time to study compared to like other subjects. I assume so lah. But then like so I think more or less we were a bit more studious.
Imagine like the lab results say it's 1.234. Round down lah. 1 make it 1.
So no. For me, I'm quite like 1.23 means it's 1.23. There's no such thing lah. Okay. But I think we're all a bit anal.
I think you guys should be
because I deal with like patient samples, right? So and that means that they're patients who are really undergoing these issues, right? So I have to make sure that they get the correct treatments and everything, ma. So
what made you like leave?
Transition?
Yeah, because like was it? I mean, you said you like the job, right? I mean, you like the things that you do.
Yeah.
So is it just I don't know some other factors like pay or maybe environment? Wait, how young were you back then?
I was 23. 23-ish. Yeah,
Okay.
23-ish.
Yeah. So
okay, the reason why I left, I know it sounds very bad, but very 现实 lah. It was really money as well.
yeah.
Okay, so when I went overseas to study, I studied in Australia for 4 years. So, and at that point in time when I was studying there, Sing dollars to Aussie dollars was like very twee. So what I meant by that is like one Sing dollar was, no, 1.35 Sing dollar is $1 Aussie, which means that the Aussie dollar at that point in time was very strong lah, compared to us.
Yeah.
Which also means that technically if I spend 10K Aussie dollars is 13,500 Sing dollars. And I studied for 4 years. And for science, actually, it's not a cheap course. In fact, like out of my entire cohort of my friends, actually we all were entering the same time, right? My friends that were probably studying like maybe business, commerce, and things like that, their term fees was probably about like 60% of mine. Yeah, so I really had I spent a lot. Yeah. Okay, so in total, I spent about 300,000 of my
Like
parents' money.
Does it include like accommodations?
Yes,
all
yes.
in lah. Like
Yes, all in. Yeah. So my term fees every semester was about 10K. It was 9,000 something lah, 9,600 something like that. So I rounded up to 10K lah. So 1 year is 20K already. So I studied for 4 years ma. And then on top of, and then my last year some more, it was an honours year. So honours year is more expensive. I can't remember the fees lah for that, but it's, overall I would say it's probably about 20 each every year.
Okay.
And then my accommodation
that should be
every month minimally was about, I can't remember now honestly. I don't know how many thousand. And then some of in my last year I stayed out on my own. And because I was actually posted to work in the, for my last year, my honours, right, I was actually posted to work in the hospital, which wasn't in the uni area. So I had to move out on my own. And obviously all my friends that I've made, they are still studying, so they will be like staying closer to the school. So I had to stay on my own. So I had my own apartment and everything like that. And then because I still had to go back to school like once in a while for like presentations and whatnot, right? So in the end, my parents also bought me a car. Okay, like my car was cheap lah. I was like, well, I think about it also. I'm like, I miss those days, man. Like my car was 2,500.
What?
Yeah, ridiculous amount, honestly. What? Yeah, 2005. So yeah, but all these things actually added up quite a bit. So over 4 years, I spent about 300K.
Then A-Star didn't pay. The ROI for A-Star wasn't.
Really wasn't. But because I'm quite a facts and figures person, so in my first year, okay, I'm going to just explicitly say it lah. So in my first years, and this was like 17 years ago, give or take, my income at that point in time was 2003 as a fresh grad.
In A-Star?
Yeah, in A-Star. So that was 2003. And then like, my peers back then in polys, their starting pay was about 1,800, 1,900, which technically, yes, I probably was doing better. But
then you also went through...
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, 300,000 if I earn 2003, how many years do I have to work to pay back that kind of thing? So I was like, a bit bo hua. And actually I was really quite good at what I was doing and I was interested. So I was offered scholarships, PhD scholarships as well, with my boss as well as with my ex-professor in Australia, because he actually had a lab in Singapore. So he said, why not you take over be my PhD student, and then you take the project in Singapore, and then then I don't have to keep flying back and forth. So I said, sure lah. So let me know what's the situation, like how is that going to work and things like that. So I was offered the PhD scholarships on both ends, but for me, I was really not very happy with my starting pay. That's one. I know I'm probably a little bit impatient, because I think most people will be like, only first year only, like what you're thinking, like you think you could be earning like 4,000, 5,000, no lah. But in my mind, I also thinking like in terms of prospects, whether or not it's good. So when I actually was offered the PhD scholarships, I did go around asking, like, if let's say I graduate from my PhD scholarship already,
what's the pay?
What's the pay like? Yeah, I want to know how am I going to bench against my peers, because then it makes sense whether or not to embark on this next journey, right? If I'm not going to get a certain payout or whatever, as much as I'm passionate about the work, but I need to feed myself. I need to feed my family. I need to pay off things as well lah. So I was like, does it really justify? So I went on to check and everything.
So how much was it?
Well, PhD scholar, after you graduate and everything, right, the starting pay, the range was about 4,500 to about 4,800, maybe 5,000. It's that kind of range.
Okay.
And I was like,
and then how many years does it take?
4 years. Minimally is 4 years.
Minimum 4 years, right?
Yes. And sometimes because it's science, right? I actually have a friend back in Australia, right? Their PhD stretched all the way to up to about 5.5 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because the research just haven't finished in a way, right? So you can't judge, right? You know, it's not like you write a thesis and then you can like, yay, okay, just cut and then go on. So you have to like finish it. Then so my friend was actually finished only about 5.5 years later. And then I was like thinking, okay, PhD, you're a student. They'll pay you an allowance. My allowance at that point in time was 2,000. So I was like, not only will I get demoted from my 2003, which I already not happy about. So so it's like 4 years of minimally 2,000 and because it's an allowance, right? It's not income. They will not increase, right? So it's really pure 4 years of.
But can 2,000. You work though? Like, can you?
No, you can't.
Oh, so you have to.
You don't. I don't think, at least for science, right? It's not really very feasible lah, because you have so much time spent on the research itself. Because technically, when you're doing PhD, it's not like you're just writing thesis and things like that. It's you actually have to do the experiments and get results. So you actually need to run the experiments. And running experiments takes time. It's not like you just write a thesis and then you move on.
Holy shit, 2K.
Yeah, so it's 2K of allowance, and then it just didn't really make a lot of financial sense for me. So it was 4 years of that, and then subsequently you graduate, you get like 4,500 or 5,000. And I was like, oh my God. And then I was just thinking, like, by the time I reached my like 30s or something like that, because that time I was like 23. So I was like thinking, like, by the time I finish my PhD, I think I'll be close to like 30, most likely. And I'm like, I'm getting like 4,000 plus kind of income. And it's not like, it's not like when you get PhD already, your next job subsequently after that, you're like, whoa, I'm going to get 8,000 or something. No lah, it doesn't work that way.
I always thought that was the case, I always thought like...
No, not for science though.
It's like you got degree, then you take like let's say a master's, that's pay jump, and then like to PhD, should be like a larger jump, like maybe at least 10K a month or something.
But not so much for science though. So I feel like, I think a lot of people in the science field or medical field, at least, I mean, not medical per se, but in the science field, a lot of us really do it for passion, but we don't really get remunerated very well lah. So I was a bit like kind of thing. So it was very funny lah. So I was already doing my financial planning for my career path back then already. So in all honesty, then I actually had a family friend that also is, she's in the industry. She's currently in the financial industry. Back then. And then she found out that I was actually, that I graduated and I'm in the science field, and she used to be in the medical field as well. So she came and speak to me about how is it and whether or not I enjoyed it and everything. So I just happened to casually mention about the fact that I was offered a PhD, but it doesn't seem like it's going to pan out very well if I continue in that path. And then that's where she opened up the idea of financial planning. And it kind of opened my eyes up as well, because I never knew that there was this thing called insurance. In all honesty, at that age, I had 0 policies. So I was my first client. So when she actually mentioned about the industry and everything, I was actually very interested, because in my mind, it was like all the research that I was doing in the lab at that point in time anyway cost us so much money. But where does all these costs come from? We're not a non-profit organization after all. We have to profit from somewhere, right? So all these costs actually will be tagged on to the patients who need the treatments and everything. And even at that point in time, I already knew that the cost of all these treatments was really quite expensive. It can actually total all the way up to a couple of thousands if, let's say, it's not subsidized and everything. So I was thinking, can people really sustain? Because I was only earning 2,003, but if I touch wood really had some hepatitis or whatever, I had to be on treatments and everything like that. Then every month, let's say if I had to, even if I spend $500 to $600 for treatments every month, that's a good,
that's
almost 25%.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, how can people even justify spending this kind of money for treatments and everything lah? So after that, when I thought about it that way, then it kind of got me interested into what financial planning actually could
Right.
do
Okay.
for people as opposed to the research that I was doing. So, I mean, just to even go further back, right? The reason why I wanted to go into science was because I lost a family member, a very close family member to cancer. So that's also the reason why I was very interested in research, because I was like, I want to make sure that there are more families that will not go through what I went through. And I just felt like science was the way to go, because then it makes me want to know how to actually get treatments for for not clients, but for patients and things like that. So when I was actually introduced into the financial planning industry, then I was like, hey, actually I can think about, I'm actually helping people, but now in a different perspective.
Yeah.
Instead of the research, I could actually look at it from like the financial perspective, because even if I do the research, but the research is so expensive, how can people even afford the treatment anyway? So instead of me giving them the treatments, anyway, there are so many people doing the research for that, right? Then I might as well do the planning for people that I care about, and make sure that if, let's say, they do fall sick for whatever reasons, right, at least they have the financial capacity to actually like get all the treatments that is required lah.
So
Yeah.
you joined, and then like, because you mentioned you took a sabbatical, right? So like, how many years did you worked as a financial planner? Then after that, you know, before you became a mom and everything else.
I worked
breakdown,
for
yeah.
about so I joined in 2000, end of 2007 lah. So actually I officially started maybe 2008,
Okay.
I would say. And then I stopped working in 2014.
Also about like 6, 7.
Yeah, so I was
7
working
years.
for about a good 5-6 years at least.
Okay.
Then subsequently 2014 I stopped all the way until around 2019 end also. So about 5 years long.
So you work for 6, sabbatical for 5.
Yeah, then now I'm
Right,
back.
then back, right?
Yeah,
for
yeah.
another 5.
Now it's almost 5 years, I would say.
Yeah, so it's like 6, 5.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something
about
like
there,
that.
6,
Yeah,
5, 5,
about
right?
there lah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So like,
correct.
what do you had to? Because like, okay, how many kids you have, right? 2?
Two.
2, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So at the point in time, like, what was the thought process? Because, you know, one of the things that I personally feel like a lot of people, especially in our industry, do not really talk about, right? Is
Yeah.
really talking about our own personal milestones.
Yeah.
We always talk about career milestones, right?
Yes.
You know, COT, MDRT, whatever,
Yeah.
right? Management, so on and so forth. But I think sometimes when we just look at the career path, it's a little bit too one-sided, because it's like, oh, everything 会顺顺上, right? But then again,
Yeah.
it's like you have to see how your personal life
Yeah.
stages comes in, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so
Correct.
so I'd like to talk about that, right? So what made you decide to take like a sabbatical for like 4 or 5 years versus like, okay, maybe that 1 or 2 years, then after that, you know, or like kind of like quote unquote
Yeah.
part-time, you know, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So what was the like thought process back then?
Actually, so I think for my life has been quite a roller coaster, I would say. So just before, so in 2014, I decided to like stop work and everything, right? But prior to that, I was actually I did have another loss in my family again. Also death. And yeah, it was actually my own brother. So that was in 2011. So from 2011 all the way until 2014, I was still just you know, piaing lah, in lesser. Yeah, so I was just piaing because I just wanted to work my heart out, and like I just didn't want to think about it in that sense. But I think at that point in time, I also kind of knew that family is really, really important. Because I mean, 2011, I was only how old? I was like in my 20s, still in my late 20s and everything. Like these are the kind of things you would never expect to happen to you. You would think about it like maybe in your 50s or 60s, when death starts to happen around you, then you're like, okay, think about death.
Yeah.
But not when you're in your 20s. So, and my brother at that time was a student, so he was in uni and everything like that. Yeah, so it kind of affected me in two ways. One would be personally, it really affected me in terms of like the fact that I knew that family is really, really important. Previous times, because I study overseas and everything, right? So I tend to be a lot more independent in terms of like my career path, in terms of how I view my life and everything like that. It's always been like, you know, I'm more of you know, I only think for myself. Like, you know, my parents anyway, they are kind of like financially they are actually okay.
Yeah.
They can handle themselves and everything. And at that point in time, my sisters also were, one was going to graduate from uni, the other one was also graduating from my poly, something like that. So I kind of knew that anyway at this point in time, they don't really have to worry about themselves and everything lah, in a way.
Yeah.
So didn't think too much. And yeah, so when what happened to my brother actually happened, it kind of changed my perspective a little bit. Like, I can't assume that my family will be with me forever. I will eventually lose them. Hopefully later rather than earlier, but you also cannot dictate. I mean, I'm not God after all. So I kind of had that perspective change in terms of like what family really means to me. That's one. And then in terms of career-wise, because I think in my earlier years, I was doing well. I did hit my MDRT and everything
Nice.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Well, last time MDRT was like a big thing. I mean, we're
yeah,
talking about like years back.
yeah, so I had my first MDRT, I think 2009.
Yeah, wow,
Yeah. So my second year of the industry. So
Was that like
I can't remember.
recession back then already? 2008,
2008 was the subprime crisis or something like that. Yeah, so
yeah.
2009 we were considered like the recovery, I
Okay,
suppose. Yeah, so 2009 I had my first MDRT and everything, but then so I was just chonging lah.
Yeah.
In a way. So 2011 hit, then I was still doing well. It's not that I wasn't doing well or anything, but I guess in a sense, because as I mentioned, like two things changed for me in the sense that I was doing well, but yet I wasn't really how do I say? I wasn't as passionate. I wouldn't say, because like you have never dealt with death, right, at that age for me.
Okay.
So you would just like tell people, you will tell the insurance like, yeah, you will need it one. But then you don't actually have that cemented fervor about it, the passion.
Were you numbing the pain?
Yes, I was. I honestly think I also was. But yet I was also going around reminding people that you cannot assume that you will live forever. You cannot assume people around you will live forever, things like that. So I use that to numb myself as well as to also get more passionate about why is it that I'm really doing this, because that was really like, how I think there are some seniors out there that will say that, you will never feel the real passion of your business until you do your first death claim. It was just unfortunate for me that the first death claim that I ever did was my own brother's lah. Yeah, so that was actually the reason why I was also chonging and things like that. Then subsequently 2014 I was because I mean I've been running for like three more years and everything, right? So at that point I was getting married, and then after that I was also thinking of having kids and all. So I kind of took a little bit of a downplay on my career lah. So I was like, I really think if I want to settle down and everything, like, I just felt that I maybe should kind of like slow down a little bit, not like go crazy. And at that point in time, I was really in my 30s. So I was also like thinking like, actually, amongst my friends, I would say I'm really considered like late. Like in my generation, people were still getting married like maybe maybe mid-20s or late 20s. But I was already in my 30s before I even considered like settling down. So yeah, so the reason why I also decided to take a step back and like, be a stay-home mom and everything was really because I was like, family is still important. And on top of that, I didn't start my family when I was young. I started it like when I was later. So I had my kids when I was in my mid-30s already.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was like thinking, if I have my kids now, the chances of me having more kids, right? Like if you are maybe in your 20s, you have 1 or 2 kids, then you'll be thinking like, okay, maybe you can consider another 1 or 2 more. But for me, it was more of a like, I'm really how old already? Like how many kids am I gonna have? That kind
Wasn't
of thing.
it hard though? Like, I'm just thinking and imagining, right? Like one would to a certain large extent kind of like quote unquote give up of the income. I mean, sure, it's recurring, right? But then like the active portion of it, you just give that up, and then like going into being a full-time mom and really taking care. Like, was it hard? Like, I like to think that it's kind of hard, especially when it's not that you're not doing well. You get MDRT and then you're earning good money, and then kind of like, so, like, what was the thought process back then? Like, was it hard, or was it a very, clear decision that, the money can wait, I want to give a shit and really care about my family right now?
So that's the thing. I think it's very difficult to actually have a clear decision. Like I knew that was what I want to do. Like I know that I want to actually focus my full attention and full energy on my kids. But obviously that career woman person inside of me was also struggling lah. So I think for me, right, my entire journey of not working was actually very, very difficult in terms of not so much about the time that I could have spent with my kids, but it was more of the personal side. So there are so many times where I'll be thinking to myself, I would like just be crying also lah, because I was like, wow, I earned so much before and I could do whatever I want, whereas now like I have nothing. I'm only living off savings, and I still want to have a certain lifestyle. I still want my kids to like, have a certain lifestyle and everything like that. So But obviously, certain types of lifestyle, it comes at a cost.
Yeah.
And where's that cost going to come from? It's just going to come from my savings lah. And I mean, I was earning good money, but yet after that, having to live off savings only was
Yeah.
just not a very comfortable feeling lah, in all honesty. And then obviously in total I took about 5 years already.
Yeah.
Off. So I would say I was fortunate because after 5 years, then I actually wiped out my savings. So I still managed to not work totally for 5 full years. But because I eventually I did give up my license, so I didn't even have recurring also.
Oh.
Yeah, I did. I actually gave it up as well.
Do you was it like an obligation? Like you had to, or was it like a...
Actually, for me, it was an obligation as well because this one is really nothing to do with my decision. It was just my boss at the point in time, my ex-boss. So a bit psychotic lah. So we didn't really get along very well in this aspect because I think he wasn't very accepting of my decision to be stay-home mom. I mean, I can understand lah.
Yeah, producer to...
Yeah, I can understand.
Totally zero, yeah.
So in the end, I think he made things a little bit more difficult for me as well. So I just felt that after a while, it was really not possible for me to stay and be comfortable about it, getting recurring and everything. So in the end, I had to really make a clean cut. So I had to really surrender my license and everything. So I left.
So it wasn't technically like you wailing.
No, I wasn't lah. Yeah.
You know what's funny? I had this one of our advisor who joined us like maybe 1-2 years ago. She's a mom, and then when from same company. So back then when she was producing everything else, then I think on her 3rd year when she was pregnant and everything else, right? And I think you take maternity, take some time off, whatnot, right? The boss just told her and said that, look, you either work, or you fuck off from the agency. And
understand.
And I think at that point in time, it was the agency there, and then also like I think they call it BDM, right? We're kind of like on the same side.
Oh my, okay.
So then she had no choice but to just like
tender.
Tender lor,
understand.
Yeah, and I mean I don't know, maybe that was years back, but then again it's like, I just feel like it's I don't know. Like actually I thought these kind of things doesn't happen, I mean, what kind of generation, right? But like to hear this kind of things is like, I mean, technically you're not even like 8 to 5 corporate worker like.
Yeah, technically you're also not being paid like an income.
Yeah,
per
correct,
se,
right?
Yeah, I know. So that's why I think at that point in time I was also extremely jaded as well, because I think in a sense that when you come into the industry in the first place, right, all you can think about is like what people have been telling you about, like the high life. You're like the self-employed. You can do whatever you want. You want to work, you work. You don't want to work, you don't work, and everything like that. So like that 5 years that I was actually like a stay-home mom, I didn't experience that joy of actually being a stay-home. I enjoyed the joy of having time with my kids, but I didn't enjoy the being a stay-home, having to choose to be a stay-home mom and getting repercussions from other people that didn't agree with it. So obviously for me it was like my bosses and everything like that lah. Yeah, because then obviously they make my life a lot more difficult. Then certain things which is not compulsory to do, for example, right, they'll be like, no, you need to do it, or no, you need to go for this training, you need to go for this, or things like that. So it kind of still put a huge dampener on a lot of things, because like, I mean, firstly, I was like a first-time mom, especially for my first kid, right? I was a first-time mom. So there's so many things that I myself am learning to do as a new mom. And then here I am like having to deal with all these crazy nonsense about like, things which technically I don't have to do, but then I'm being forced to do. Yeah, so I was actually quite jaded lah about that, about our industry back then. And in all honesty, actually, when I decided to come back to work full time, I never even thought about coming back into our industry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
didn't. I didn't. I honestly didn't, because
where were you thinking then? I'm just curious. Like, where were you thinking?
I actually wanted to either go into corporate, because I do feel like, based on my experience and the kind of go-getter that I am, I actually think maybe corporate might not be a bad idea. And I didn't think that, based on my experience and everything, like I needed to start from ground zero after all. Yeah, so I was actually thinking of going into corporate, maybe possibly still in the industry, but just as a corporate person, rather than like an FA. that was one option. The other one was actually to consider maybe doing my own business. For some weird reason, I know a lot of people ask me that I never actually considered going back to science. Never. Yeah, maybe because I knew like the path lah. And on top of that, I think for science, you need to really be practicing your research skills and everything, right? So I was like, okay, I think not possible. So I kind of, so those were actually my two options. And then somehow, somewhere, I came across people in our industry, and then they came to talk to me, and then they were like, remember that passion that you had for your job and everything like that. Yeah. And then some of them actually use this very, I feel like sometimes it's a very mean phrase, but they actually said to me, but what about all those clients of yours that have been waiting for you to come back into the industry? Then I was like, walao, so emotional blackmail like your guys. Then so I thought about it honestly, and then I did remember because I did make this promise to my clients that I will come back to the industry. I just want to make sure that I spend the first few years of my kids' lives with them. So I did tell them that once my kids actually reach a certain age, that they're a little bit more, not say independent per se, but as in maybe they can go, for me it was like at least for them to go into childcare, but the full-time one at a certain age. So I was actually thinking of maybe 2.5 years old first. Then I will come back to the industry lah. And at that point in time, I only wanted one kid. So in the end, I thought like it wouldn't be very long. I thought maybe 3 years. But then in the end, I got my second one. So I was like, oh no, it dragged on for another extra 2 more years lah. Yeah.
I'm just curious. And I had this question in my mind when you're talking about like, the jadedness during the 4-5 years and whatnot. If let's say you kept a license, your ex-boss or whoever didn't do shit, it's fine. Would you have enjoyed, like, would it be an experience that you would enjoy, being a stay-home mom and everything else?
I guess so. I mean, honestly speaking, I think as a mom, right? I mean, I'm not trying to advocate people to be moms. I think it's a personal choice and preference. But honestly speaking, being a mom is not easy. So if people around you can actually just show some form of support, I think it would have made my journey so much easier and so much better. I don't regret having had that bad experience, in all honesty, because then I really can fully appreciate what, like, my choice of actually being a stay-home mom, like, to its full extent. But on the other hand, I also do think that like it did make me a lot stronger lah.
Do you wish you had a hybrid of like quote unquote part-time? If looking back, maybe close 2-3Ks a month, maybe earn 2-3K FYC kind. Do you wish you kind of like had a little bit more like, okay, you know what, I'll still work a little bit, but then like, is it like 20% work, then 80% kids kind of stuff?
I mean, actually, like, I kind of did that, but it was so part-time until like you want to talk about like, so I mean, obviously for us to hold on to our license with a company, there's still a contract maintenance, right? So but that's the thing. So I feel like, honestly speaking, my support actually came from a lot of my clients. So like in that 5 years, okay, actually not 5 years, because I did like remove my license for about 1 to 2 years, about there. So for the first 3 years, let's just say, so for the first 3 years, I did actually hit all my contract maintenance, but all my contract maintenance was because like my clients themselves had like life changes, so they would be the one to actually come to me. They will reach out and everything. So I mean, I could still advise and all, right? So I did give the advice and everything, but like paperwork and everything is quite funny lah. So my spouse, my husband, is actually in the industry, so he's my kakia. So I'll be like, okay. So I kind of like,
helps.
Exactly.
Helps.
So I will just like, okay, give the advice, and then I will technically even have sold the plan.
Right.
Yeah, but then in a sense, like all the paperwork and everything, like all will be settled by my husband lah. Kind of thing lah.
Okay.
So it helps. Right. It helps in a way, but so if I want to say that I totally didn't work, I can't really say that either. But in a sense, like, you want to say like 20%, I don't think I even hit 20%. Yeah, definitely not. It's really a very, very extremely passive way, whereby only if clients called me, then I did. But the thing is that because I think even though prior to that, I was working for about, I think just now we calculated it was about 6 years before I stayed home, right? Yeah. So the first 6 years, I worked really hard, which also meant that my clients kind of knew that every time there's something that actually cropped up in their lives, they would contact me directly. So even with my contract maintenance and everything, I had no problems. I never had to stress about it.
Right.
And in fact, like, I can probably confidently and arrogantly say maybe that my production was even better than those people that were full-time. Yeah. So, yeah, but I mean, it was only for the first 3 years lah. But obviously, it's a far cry from my MDRT days, obviously. Yeah. So, I mean, like, that's why. But then, like, yeah, as your question goes, like, whether or not maybe I could have worked a bit more, like, really put maybe 20% time rather than like anything lesser than that. Sometimes I wonder whether or not like it would have made a difference. But yeah, on the other hand, I'm also thinking, but in all honesty, I've been telling myself that, which was also one of the reasons why I let go of my career back then, was because in a sense was like, with kids, once they grow up, you can't turn back time. But money, honestly speaking, you can always build up. It takes time, but like, you know, if you're willing to put in the time, then I don't see what's the problem lah. And honestly now, with my kids, like, you know, my 7-year-old, I mean, she's old enough to really like have conversations with me and everything, right? So like sometimes she'll like ask me questions like that, like, you know, mommy, you know, now you keep working so hard, I don't really get to see you as often and things like that. And then I just had a sit down conversation with her one day about this, and I told her, like, you know, I call Tse lah. So I said, Tse, like, you know that last time mommy was the one that took care of you, right? When you were a baby and when Titi was a baby and everything. And she was like, yeah, I know, I remember. Then I was like, yeah, the reason why I did that then was because I totally didn't work at all. So I spent all my time with you and Titi. But now that because the both of you are older, you all are going to school, and obviously you all spend a lot more of my money because you all want to go for enrichment class, you want to go for crazy holidays, you want to do all the funny things lah, you know, and all of this costs money. My kids' favorite food is like Japanese and Hai Di Lao. Not the cheapest things lah, honestly. So I said that, you know, like Jia, you like all these things, so I need to have money to be able to do all these things, right?
So do you go back to work because like you wanted to, you know, really have your own lifestyle, you know, maybe you're bored of being staying home, whatever it is, or is it like a large part of it is because like, okay, you know what, the kids bills and everything else is going to be high, and therefore you want to do it? So
actually, I think my main reason was more like I needed to find myself back. Because when I think as a mom, right, sometimes you tend to really forget that you have a life of your own. I used to live my life purely for my children, and I think somehow only moms understand this. I don't know why, but like I have a lot of friends that when I tell them about this, right, they'll be like, huh, why do you need to do that? You can still have your own life. But somehow with other moms, they understand, like, somehow you just kind of lose yourself. I don't know how, I don't know why, maybe it's just a motherly thing, but you just tend to make every decision in your life according to your kids, right? And you tend to forget after a while what is it that you want for yourself. Even very basic things like what you want to eat. Like sometimes my kids will ask me like what I want to eat, right? Then I'll just ask them, I'll just very casually ask them what you all want to eat. Totally forgetting that actually I also should remember what is it that I want to eat lah. So sometimes they like want to eat whatever they want. Like they love McDonald's. I mean, every child loves McDonald's. I've never eaten so much McDonald's in my entire life. Like in this few years in my life. Yeah. So I keep laughing, and after a while I was like, I keep that. Then after that, I will just tell myself like, hey, if I don't like McDonald's, right, maybe I should just voice it out. Like, and somehow surprisingly, my kids were like, "Mommy don't like McDonald's. Let's eat something else. We'll eat McDonald's when she's not joining us." Something like that. Okay. Yeah. So I think my decision back then was really purely because I needed to find myself, and also because I'm not. I don't know. I think some moms, right, they're amazing lah. They really live as like they really live their lives to, like, you know, dedicate everything to their children as a stay-home mom, and I think that's extremely admirable, but it just didn't work very well for me. So I felt like I needed something in my life for me to be a better mom, and for me to have my career actually help me to be a better mom, because I felt like at least with my work I'm living the life that I want to live, but yet so like in terms of emotionally, mentally, right, I had the space and time to actually be with my kids. I know it sounds a bit weird, but like because I think if you kind of lose yourself, right, you're not really yourself with your kids.
And
But
therefore, you can't really be
exactly.
in that very moment
Yes, correct.
full with the all of you in that
Yes,
sense, right?
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think this is so important, because like,
yeah,
especially
it's
for
true.
any of you watching who are going to be parents, at some point, whether you're the guy,
Yeah.
the girl, or whoever it is, right? I think it's important. Like, it's important that this conversation rise up, because I think, especially as a mom, right? Obviously, it's not easy. And I think sometimes, I mentioned, you get lost.
Yeah.
Everything's all your kids, and
Yes.
everything else. Becoming a mom, becoming a wife to a husband.
Yeah.
And in fact, being a daughter-in-law, right?
Yeah.
Like, suddenly you
Correct.
take out like so many roles.
Yeah.
Now, of course, this is not to say that the husband or the man doesn't take those roles. They also do. It's just that, like, I think for you to give up this part of career for the time, I think that's like very, very hard. Because why I say it's hard, right? Because I do know of other advisors who are also moms. They coach and whatnot, right? Even when they are pregnant, even when they're raising their kids when they're young,
Yeah.
also, they are actually still working.
Yeah.
They still like earn 100 grand, 200 grand,
Yes.
whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But I can also say that on that extreme, so they're basically like full stay home mom,
Yeah.
or like full-time working plus take care of kids, which is like
Yes.
also difficult, right?
Yes.
But I can also tell you that those moms who are at this part of the spectrum, this is like 100% of the time, right? They always say this. They always say that one of the things that was a strain or something that is sacrificed, right, was always have to do with the kids.
Yes. Correct.
Strain relationships, don't have the time,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. And then, they'll tell me and say things like, my son was like saying like, mommy, why you keep going to work? And then sometimes it's just like, I think it's very hard because like those moms that are working, they also want to provide for the children, and it's already hard to be away. But then especially when your son or the daughter say things like this,
Exactly.
like, it pinches even more, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's a very huge trade-off and sacrifice.
Yes.
Now of course yours was the other side of it, right? And everything else. Yeah, but I think like people, as we are going through the phases, I'm not yet a parent, I'm not yet married yet, soon to be. But the whole point is like I think you have to take into considerations like the milestones, especially like if you're a woman, a financial planner, or I think even for like men, right? Like
of course.
you gotta like look at it, because I do know of others as well. They bite the bullet, but still want to spend time with kids. I have dads who work with us and then say like, I actually don't want to chiong that much. I want to earn good money, yes, provide a family, but like I also want to spend time. Kids, fetch them around, so on and so forth. So I think it's like a huge thing. Which brings to the next question, right? Then now that you still, of course, you have to take care of kids, right? Fetch them, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Do you sometimes feel that, not that it's wrong, right? But do you sometimes feel like sometimes they're a bit like burden, not to your life, but to the achievements that you might want to have in terms of like financials and whatnot. Because it's like you want to go for appointments, right? Like if you don't have kids, then we can stack up and then you go. But then sometimes like kids, then you have to say no to certain things, you have to reschedule, you have to delay. And sometimes with some clients, or some prospects, you delay or reschedule, and then the next time you meet them is like 5 months later, okay? Yeah. So like, do you feel, I wouldn't say burden, burden is the wrong word. I think maybe like, do you feel that there's somehow of like a pulling you from like work, that you want to do work, but then at the same time the kids, and if yes, right, then how do you manage, around this kind of like relationship, these dynamics?
Okay. So, oh my gosh, I experience this like pretty much on a daily basis. I mean, in a way, as much as I did spend so much time with my kids in the initial years, right? But like now, I can't even say that my kids are grown up and they don't need me anymore kind of thing. My daughter is 7, my son is 5. So they are still in that needy phase. But when they kind of nag me about like why I'm working and everything like that, like it eats out inside me. But on the other hand, I also as I said just now, right? Like I can just tell them like, I spent time with you all before there. So like now, like let me chong a little bit lah, kind of thing. So how do I deal with it?
Do you feel like that's a like I just want to, because there was something that stood out to me. Like, do you feel like that reason of like I spent time with you last time, and then therefore, allow me to work a little bit more, so on and so
Yeah.
forth, right? Do you feel like sometimes that reason could be, I don't know, could be misinterpreted by your children in a sense whereby, oh, because of us,
Yeah.
that's why mommy never worked last time. Do you think that might have some form of implication on like how they think, like basically they feel like, oh, they were the quote unquote burdens, or like, they are like the problems in that sense.
So I think if you say it that way, yes. So okay, when it comes to my kids, right, I'm quite firm on this whole explanation to them. I think I'm one of, I don't know whether all moms do this, but for me, right, I really like to sit down with my kids and really have a time where we talk about things like that. My kids are not old, I know, but like, and I think some people will be like, at like this kind of ages, you're actually having this kind of conversations with them. But for me, my kids, I really have such conversations with them, especially my daughter, because I know that she really can understand. So I do have a lot of conversations with her, especially about this, to let her understand that she is not a burden. I chose to want to spend time with her because I wanted that. But I'm just letting her know that the reason why I decided to come back to work now is because I know that she is also quite independent. She can do a lot of things. And because I know that she wants a lot more things in her life, I try to let her know that when you are schooling, mommy also needs to go to work, mommy needs to earn money so that you can also go for more things and things like that. So I told her, like, to a certain extent, I do let her understand that there has to be some form of compromise here and there as well. But I don't want my kids to take it that, like, I was a burden to you and things like that. No. I will want her, so like for me, with my daughter, I do this whereby I ask her something, then if let's say she doesn't know the answer to it, for example, right, I tell her the answer, I expect her to repeat it back to me so that it can, so that she remembers it, and she can actually like know why is it that I'm doing it this way and things like that lah. So I mean, I think there's a good and bad to it, in the sense that like I do, because I do that so often with both my kids, right? I do have to spend a lot of time, because I need to let them know, I need them to understand, I need them to maybe kind of empathize a little bit about this. And it kind of actually cements our relationship more. So to a certain extent, sometimes now when I ask, like, there was one time when my daughter was like, "Mommy, you're going to work again?" I was like, yeah, I have to go and work again. And then my daughter herself, right, will actually give me the reason why she knows that I have to go and work, for example. So I think it kind of puts me in a better working space as well, because I'll be like, I don't have to worry, because I know that my daughter knows why I'm working, because she's actually explaining it to me in her own words, in her own version, and it's exactly what I told her last time also. So she knows why I'm doing this, and she acknowledges that this is just something that I need to do.
Right.
Yeah. So, but then, like, I mean, we're parents lah, and I think there's this, I mean, like, it's a very known thing. There's this thing called a mommy guilt. Like, we're just guilty about the whole thing, like everything. Whether or not we're a stay-home mom, we're guilty about that. Whether or not we're a working mom, we're guilty about that. If we are on compromise, also we feel guilty about this part and this part and things like that. Yeah, so it's a very real thing, and I honestly thought like this is the stupidest thing ever. Last time when I was younger, I'd be like, where was such thing one? Like, you need to do means you need to do lah. Like, what guilt are you talking about? Then until I became a mom, then I was like, oh my God, like slapping myself in the face, because I now understand it's no longer just logic. It's a lot of emotional stuff. But I think that's why I do feel like either choice that you make as a mom, whether it's to work or stay home, right? It's just admirable lah, because in the first
100%.
place, both sides of the coin, you also feel guilty somehow, somewhere one. But it's just for us to learn how to balance it. Like when you just now you were asking, like, how is it that I deal with this kind of things?
Like the work and
It's actually, to a certain extent, I just it's really a conscious effort to remind myself. I mean, obviously I also have conversations with you as well, but I also like have to consciously remind myself that this is just a path that I've chosen to take. And as long as I know what is my end goal, and to a certain extent, I also have reassured my children that I'm always there no matter what. I'm just doing this because it's something that I need to, something like that, right? I feel like then I can actually have that head space to move forward. Yeah, but it's a conscious effort every single day, because I mean, I'm sure there are so many days where my kid has something on and I'm like, I don't feel like working today. I want to like, spend it with them and whatnot. But I know you have to just balance and weigh out what are the pros and cons and whether or not you are comfortable with that decision. And if you're comfortable with that decision, then please just take it.
Yeah. I love what you said just now about like accepting, being 100% responsible and really accepting the decisions that you make, right?
Yeah.
Because I think, with the mom and the children, or even like dad and the children kind of family situation, like the guilt thing that you talk about, I think even extends, to other type of relationships.
Yes.
So like, when I moved out to have my own place and everything else, right? No, I didn't leave because like, oh, okay, mom, dad, I'm independent, bye-bye. It was like some huge ass quarrel and then like, fuck it, and then just move out. But because I was the only child, and then, you just imagine your last like 26, 27 years, you're like, every day you see your parents every day. Putting army aside, but like you see them every day. And then like, as my parents gets older, they're like 64, 65 this year, you feel a bit of that kind of like tinge of, I don't know, like for me, I just feel kind of guilt, it's like, you want to work, you want to make sure you sort things out, but then at the same time, like you're away from your parents. Then it's like, there could be times, because last time when I was staying with my parents, it's like there could be times, right? I'll wake up, I'll have breakfast with my mom. Or like sometimes I'll come back earlier, then I was like, okay, mom, I'm gonna tap out coffee for you. And then it's like, we can have those moments, those sort of time. And then like now, I can't have it as much as I like to anymore because of work and everything else. But you have that tinge of like, just tearing you inside,
I'm going to tell you first, once you get married, it's going to get worse. The guilt is going to be worse because there will be times where you'll be thinking like, oh, I'm doing this with my partner all the time. And like something that I used to do with my parents. And
correct.
Like,
and then you got like, you got all these
you
things,
feel
right?
it.
Yeah. So I think this is the reason why, like, I think obviously it's not going to be easy. And I also believe that, no matter how much we try to compartmentalize certain time and presence and everything else to people, there will always be that kind of like pulling tinge of guilt or whatnot, So I mean, of course, we can only do our best. But I think also at the same time, talk about responsibility.
Yes.
I think that comes also with, this idea or notion that we talk about was like, which problem do we want, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, which problem do we want? Do we want? You see, it's kind of like if let's say we have 100% of time. There's 5 people, right? Maybe mom, dad, children, spouse, whatever.
Yeah.
Let's say we split 20-20-20-20, right? Now, obviously, if you split 20-20-20, then it's gonna be confirmed. Like you're spending time, which is good.
Yeah.
Everybody gets to see you, get to see them, but then they're gonna be like not enough, right?
Yes.
Or they're gonna be like, this will be a problem. But then on the other hand, if you're like, screw the kids, right? Or like screw the partner, like okay, spend like 1% time with them, and then like you spend like 50% with parents, 50% whatever. That's also enough. Like it's going to be good for the parents and the children, but then it's also still going to be a problem, right?
Yes,
because some people are going to like take the heat,
correct,
and stuff like that, right? So I think it goes back to like which one do you want? And I think back to like full-time stay-home mom versus like working. Like there's also a problem that you have to choose,
Correct.
Yeah, I just feel like it's so hard because like honestly I spoke to so many moms, and like it really gets into their heart one there. It's like you'll get emotional and you'll cry and everything else, like, and when I'm having those conversations, I'm like, holy shit, this is real. Like it's so hard there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then especially like, and I think that's why I have a lot of respect for people who are parents. Like really a lot. Whether you're dad or mom, I think equally is a huge respect because like I think even like for dads, it's like they also want to build their careers.
Yes.
They also want to become a man.
Yes.
And build those things.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, they have their partners, their family, their parents, and then like the children to take care of.
Yeah.
So there's still also that caring situation. I just reminded of like my dad. When I was younger, my dad wasn't around like too often because he had no choice to go overseas and so forth.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But when you grow older and had a conversation, like he was saying like it was hard. In China, and then I'm like in primary school, and then it's like,
right.
And last time was like calling was difficult because it was expensive, right? You have to do don't know what shit. Yeah. So it was like, it was hard, right? And I think that's why a lot of respect to being a parent. on the other flip side, I'm guessing there's no regrets, right? You know, being a mom or like, you know, having kids as a whole, you know.
As a whole, okay, so surprisingly, this is literally a question that my client asked me before. I don't know why the conversation went on to this, but like she just casually asked me one day. She's single lah. She's a couple of years younger than me.
Yeah.
So and she just asked me very openly, babe, do you ever regret getting married and all?
Yeah.
And I was like, walao, you asked me this kind of question like suddenly offhand during the appointment, during a financial planning appointment. So I was like, wow, totally got like shocked lah.
Yeah.
Because I was doing retirement planning with her. So obviously like retirement planning, you go into a lot of in-depth questioning and stuff like that, right? So like suddenly she just turned around and asked me lah, like, you know, do I ever regret getting married? Because like when I was talking about like, you know, for her as a single, she only needs to worry for like herself and everything like that, right? So technically, she has a lot more excess cash lah to you know, move around and things like that. Yeah, so she just asked me that, and then I was like, oh my god, like that's such a. I mean, it was so scary to answer that question, not because like I don't love my husband or something like that. No, it was more of the fact that it was a very, like it was for me a very deep question, because as I think also because like I myself am a very goal getter. I mean, you can tell from the way that I make my decisions about my career lah, that I really am very focused on what is it that I really want out of my own career. And yeah, whereas when I got married, then obviously that is another, not liability lah, I can't really say that, but it's another spectrum to actually think about in my life. That's also going to be a spectrum of my time that's going to be taken away. And then after that I became mom, and then for one kid, and then suddenly got like two kids and everything, right? So and somehow it's like, you know, it's not like one kid you give like 10% of your time, the other one is another 10%. No, it doesn't work that way. Yeah. So I did think very hard. Like during the conversation after that, when she asked me like that, I just like, wow, I just gave a very like fili-fala answer lah. But I did go home and really reflect on it on my way back from the appointment and all. And I really reflected like, can I really say 100% that I have no regrets? Because if I say I regret, then like, you know, it's also a bit of a painful thing to face. So I did think about it, and I was like, honestly, I can't imagine my life without my kids. I cannot. Like, if you ask me to turn back time, whether or not I will like want to be a career woman and everything like that. Like, yes, that would be ideal, but at the expense of not having my kids in my life, I'll be like,
it's not a trade-off.
No, it's not. It's not even something that I'll consider.
Right.
So like, it's just one of those things where you already know the outcome, right? You would never want to go back there, kind of situation. Yeah. So I after that, when I was the whole time that I was thinking about this, I was like, no, Lei, I can't. Like, I just, as much as yes, there are times where I do regret like having given up career and everything like that, but somehow I just cannot. Like, I mean, I think honestly, if you turn back the time for me, if you're God, and then you can tell me like, okay, snap, you're going back again, you're going to decide whether or not you're going to get married, you're going to have these two kids again, right? I think I honestly will make the exact same decision, because I will want these two kids. No matter what, I will want these two. That's why I think sometimes I do have moments where I'm like, yeah, you know, if I didn't take that 5 years off from work and everything like that, maybe I'm not even MDRT now. I could be TOT. Possibly, because I'm just also assuming that if I had worked like the way that I was working back then, it would have been exponential growth. I don't think it would have just been normal, like a linear growth. I honestly think it would have been exponential, just from the way that I remember how I worked last time. Yeah, and I think to myself, like, yes, I could have been TOT, but that TOT would have been at the expense of not having my husband and not having my kids in my life. Is that something that I would be able to deal with for the rest of my life? And I think no, I can't, because there's just so many memories of them in my life for the last 10 years now that I just cannot imagine that. So I think I take comfort in that as well. Like, there are times where I do feel like, you know, sometimes like awards, then you hear like, wow, that person got TOT, then you're like, ugh, like this could have been me, kind of moments, right? But like at that time I'm like thinking to myself, but then like, for what? Like, yes, TOT just sounds so good, but the enjoyment that I get out of my family is not something that money can really like buy, that money can really like, be exchanged for and things like that. So like, no, I don't. I think there are definitely times I will still feel some form of regret of not working, but regret for having them in my life, no lah. I honestly don't think I've actually come to that. Like in fact, I would feel guilty to be feeling that to feel regret, because in the first place they give me so much joy. Yes, they make me pissed off all the time when they fight, but like they also give me so much joy, more joy than I could ever imagine. As a single person back then so no lah, I don't think I would say that I have regret per se.
Oh, so it's like we talk about the awards, like
yeah.
I always say this. I always say like and like for moms and that's watching this, I always say like I was saying like Alvina, I was saying like, if you're single and everything else, then sure you have to see MDRT as MDRT. It's how much FYC, how much income. So
true.
Yeah, right. But then the moment with one kid, you gotta be assuming that the kid is equal to one MDRT worth. Right?
It's true, because the amount of time,
energy, attention, like to this kid is probably more than like even the MDRT itself, then now you have two kids, so technically you click around, right? So it's one MDRT, and then you got COT.
COT
I mean, you think about it, right?
I have a husband, so that one is one COT on its own.
No, so I think like this is super good. This is such a great conversation, because again, I truly believe, like, especially nowadays, like on YouTube and everything, I don't think, like, especially about advisors in the advice space, people talk about this, right? You know? But I think it's like, if you look at production and all the other things, like, I think sometimes we'll feel like, you just look at other people and then you realize, wow, 他们可以做 COT, so on and so forth, right? But then, I have kids. Maybe once in a while you have like, I have kids, I can't do it, so on and so forth. And stuff like that, right? But I think people can, I think one perspective is really just reframing the whole idea of like, the amount of I think we should maybe judge or assess ourselves to a certain degree, right? Not based on just money. I think based on the amount of time and attention, that we are giving to the things that you want. Right? Because for some of these people, like, they might have gotten COT or earned 300,000, right? But they might have kids, right? So then the trade-off. Now, then some people will say, hey, but I know of people who are moms, dad, who work, earn money, and then still have kids, right? I think the whole point is like, it goes back to like, you don't know what's the exact trade-off that they made. Right? You have no idea. Right? Because everything looks very nice on social media, right? Do this for kids, blah, 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 and then working as a whatever. But you don't know exactly how the conversation goes behind it.
Correct.
Right? And I think like, no matter how well we try to juggle or manage, time of opportunity cost is opportunity cost. There will be trade-off.
Correct. Agree.
Right? What looks good on social media need not, like, you may feel like you're spending time, but then again, the quality and the depth of it is a whole different thing. That people don't know.
Correct.
And I think it's so important, because sometimes we look at social media, we look at other people, and then we judge ourselves, right?
Exactly.
But we judge ourselves either like, okay, I'm not a good mom or dad, or I'm not a good planner or salesperson in terms of career. Like you will like judge yourself either one, right? Because you see that, wow, this parent like so high, I can make this and that, scale money. So I think this is like so cool to have the conversation. And I think like, okay, what would you say? Curious. So obviously there are people here watching this podcast, listening to this. It's they might be attached, they might be single, might be attached, married, but not yet have kids.
Okay.
And they're all advisors, okay? Now what would you say? Let's say to this lady who's married, is a financial planner. What would we say to this man who is now a husband, and so also an advisor, maybe in their late 20s, mid 20s, or like early 30s kind of stuff. Like what would you I don't know, your quote unquote advice, or what would you say?
Wow, that's very big right? Oh my
Like,
god, I feel like as if PFP is gonna like judge me if I say don't have kids and like have kids and kind of thing.
The truth is like a lot of people don't really want to have kids. Like there's one group of people who don't want to have kids. They rather have a dog, right? Which is like, so cute, And then the other group is like, okay, I don't have kids, but maybe not too early, right? So like what would we say like would be a top advice, or it could be advice, or it could be something that you just want to share in terms of your own view, which need not be correct or wrong, but just yours. For someone who is married and then like, thinking whether they should have kids, or not. How
understand.
does it affect?
So Actually, I feel like to each his own to a certain extent. Like, in all honesty, I don't know whether a lot of people know this, but I never wanted to have kids. I never wanted to get married. Just purely based on the fact that I honestly don't think I'm a very easy wife to have because I'm very opinionated as a person. So as a woman, worse, I think. Yeah, and I'm not exactly very motherly. I never really felt that I was a motherly person. Even my kids now, I think I talk to them like as if they're like little adults. So my parents always tell me like, I think you're a bit crazy like this mother. Yeah, so like, I think the word negotiate, like you wouldn't exactly use it on children. Right? I've been using on it with my kids since they were like 2-3 years old. Yeah, because I want them to understand that there's no negotiation. When I say no means no, like that kind of thing, right? So yeah, so I never really thought that I was a motherly person per se. I also don't know what got me into this whole like, yeah, let's go and have a baby kind of drive. I don't know,
Yeah.
crazy one. So that, yeah, but so in that sense, like I just think that when it comes to making such decisions, right, which is like huge. I mean, it really changes your life, right? Be very aware of why you're actually making that decision. Like I thought that I mean, the only reason why I didn't want to have kids was because, actually, surprisingly, it wasn't because of the fact that I wanted to give up my career or anything. It was just purely on the basis of I didn't think that I would be a good mother. That was it. I just felt like I was just too impatient, too straightforward. Like I really don't mince my words. So if you're stupid, I'll just tell you straight to your face that like that's like the stupidest thing you can ever think about. That kind of, I will not mince on. And I don't care who you are, kind of thing. So I really didn't think that it's a very good trait for a mom because obviously with moms, kids will test your patience all the time and everything like that. And I didn't feel like I would be able to be patient enough, things like that. So yeah, those were the exactly the reasons why I didn't want to have kids and everything. I just because I didn't feel like I was a motherly enough person. But somehow when I actually had kids, my friends themselves are like, wow, actually you really are so patient with your children. Like I think even my husband also was like, well, you're not even so patient with me, lor. Like with whereas with the kids, right? Like you will actually take time off to sit down and really discuss with them and everything like that. So I feel like if you're about to make this kind of decisions, whether it's to be like a spouse, whether or not it's to have kids and things like that, right? Know why you're doing it and don't shortchange yourself just because you think you cannot do it. But if you really don't want to do it because of certain aspects in your life where you feel like, no, I'm not comfortable to give this up. You're not comfortable to maybe you really feel that your career you want it to be your top priority, then I get it. I understand because but at least because of that, right, you actually know your trade-off. Yeah. Whereas if let's say you feel that you cannot do it, right, doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. That's where I'm coming from. It's like as long as you actually make the decision, knowing full well what the trade-off is. That means that, for example, let's say now you're married and then you feel like you don't want children, not because you don't know, not because the fact that you really don't want children, you just want to enjoy your life and things like that, right? Then I still think it's open for discussion. But like, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say, I would tell you not to close yourself out to certain decisions lah. Yeah, I think it's going to, firstly, I think you're going to lose out in time to in this aspect. Like for me, I really feel like I'm so glad that I opened myself up to being a mom, and at least now I'm really experiencing the life of a mom, and on top of it, I'm happy to be a mom and learning how to be a better mom every single day. And not like, if I had followed my first fear of like, I don't know if I'm going to be a good mom, I think I'm going to be a lousy mom because of this, then I think at this point in time, like now that I'm 40, this year I'm 40, right? Then I'm like thinking to myself like, wow, if I at 40 I want to try for kids, that kind of thing, I think going to be a lot more difficult lah, honestly speaking. I mean, just on a more physical aspect, right? But then like I'm just happy that I gave myself that opportunity to be open to the idea back a few years ago, to actually embark on this journey of being a parent lah. So yeah, so as long as, I think my advice really is to just make sure that you know what you're in for, and make that decision based on knowing whether or not you're actually open to the idea because of like maybe certain fears that you just need to get over. And like, yeah, you know what I mean, right? Yeah, so don't just close yourself up lah to opportunities. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, that's good. I was just thinking, like, when I was saying all this, I was just thinking also, like, you look at I think this probably need to have a second part of this conversation another time.
Oh my gosh,
You
okay.
know? Yeah, but like, I was just thinking also, we can go in that in the future. I think, really, because I was just thinking, right, you see, people who watch this video are usually advisors, right?
Yeah.
So you're a financial advisor, you or manager, and you are a mom.
Mm.
And then let's say your partner is working a corporate job.
Yeah. Oh.
Then that's tricky because then I also in my experience when I hear the stories and I talk to people who are married and have kids, right? It's kind of like it was also a tricky dynamic.
Yeah.
Because it's like the person who is the corporate job
Yes.
would say that you are flexible, you got time,
Yes.
so therefore you should be the one
Exactly.
taking care of kids.
Correct.
Then it's like
I know.
whole different thing, right?
I totally understand because I've got friends like that as well. And that's why I think like all these are conversations that you really need to have.
Probably need to have before.
Yes, you have to.
Right,
Yes,
yeah.
correct. So like I think even when it came to like me deciding to have kids, so before I got married, right? So this is how serious I actually got like with my spouse. When I was just dating my husband back then, right? He's an only son. I'm not only child, but he's an only son. So I mean, we're Chinese lah. My husband is Chinese also. So like we're Chinese. Tradition still is quite quite specific in the sense that boys will carry the family name. Not that I give a crap about these kind of things lah, but for the older generation, it is important. So for him, he actually was an only son, and back then when we were still dating, but we were quite serious already lah.
Yeah.
Then I kind of told him like, I honestly don't think I will ever want to have kids. Just because I mentioned to you just now, I have so many reasons why I didn't want to be a mom lah. So I very explicitly told him like, we had a conversation. I said that if you're actually serious with this relationship, you need to accept that I'm not going to have kids. And you need to inform your family that I am also not going to want to have kids because I don't want to later get married, right? Then they don't know. Then every time we have gathering, then they ask and everything. It will cause a lot of friction in the marriage. So I mean, if I think back, like if let's say I didn't have that conversation, right, I think it would have been a very detrimental thing if I really decided not to have kids. Of course, now everything is fine and dandy because I decided okay lah, I'm okay to have kids and everything. But back then, if I had really stuck to my guns and like no kids. Well, I can't imagine how the last few years are going to be like with my in-laws because I think they were like yum me and
especially
things like that, right?
Your biological clock is getting like
exactly
sticking, right?
Correct. And I mean, if my husband never told them also, I never had that conversation, then they will always have that whole like, hey, why don't I have kids? Hey, why don't I have kids? Hey, why don't I have kids? After a while, I mean, no matter how patient someone is, they will chip up on one day also lah. Yeah. So that's why I think these kind of conversations, unfortunately, that happens to be something you really need to be very specific about.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Like
So
I think it's important, right? Yeah.
Really need to.
Okay, so you guys are listening or listening to the podcast, watching this. You're gonna get married. You're gonna have kids, and especially the FA or the manager or director, and then like your partner is not gonna be a stay-home mom or dad, and then they're working and corporate, and nothing to do with corporate or not corporate, but like you're gonna balance out and agree upon like the rules in that sense, and the duties and the responsibilities of how you guys should assign, right? Yeah, because if you don't, I think it's good. It's like you're in it, and then you have to resolve it at a point in time when you have all those emotions.
And I think this is just a conversation that you just need to have with whatever your spouse is working as, also you need to have that. Because like my husband and I were both FAs, so technically we're both flexible.
Yeah.
So like, but on the other hand, like I'm quite sure as a traditional thinking would be like, but the mother is the one that usually take care of everything, right? But I'm like, no man, sorry, it's not gonna be the way. Like it's not like having a child is a 50-50 thing, It's like, it's not like I can get pregnant by myself. Like you also had your contribution, I also had my contribution. We decided to have a child together. Let's just commit to this like wholeheartedly together, and then we work along the way lah. Obviously, there's a lot more compromises and everything like that, but you need to have that kind of difficult conversations lah. I wouldn't even think that my husband and I like finish our difficult conversation. I honestly don't think we did. A lot of things we also like kind of fight along the way and find out, but like I think very basic stuff like who's going to help take care
deal breakers.
Yes,
specifically like things that will break the deal.
Correct.
I think those like bare minimum needs to be discussed.
So mine at that point in time, the deal breaker was whether or not I was going to have kids. So I needed to get him to sit down and be very comfortable that if we decided to get married, that he is going to be okay with me not having kids for the rest of my life because he loves kids. He wanted like 4. I was like, my gosh, like you crazy, you think I cow or what? Yeah, so I was like, he wanted 4 kids and I was like, legit, like I didn't even want any kids. So okay, now we compromise 2. So you have instead of you like, having 4, I give you 2 now, then
Well, I think
yeah.
yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. Now that you
Yes,
mentioned,
must have.
really must have
Yeah.
it. Because I think like sometimes even with, like I think a lot of times having children
Yeah.
could also make or break the personal relationship between the man and the woman, right?
Yes.
You know, it's sometimes because of, it's not because it's the kid's fault, but it's rather like, okay, we agreed to have this particular human being. We supposed to have certain rules, but then after you're not doing yours, I need to take over.
Yeah.
Then I feel like you're not doing your part, and I feel unfair, and then like blah blah
Yeah.
blah blah, and then it could really
Yeah.
break. And then sometimes like I do heard of stories whereby parents stay together not because they love each other, but because of the
kids,
kid.
yeah.
Then there's another like a whole
Yeah.
different story and ending to that.
I think majority. I hear a lot.
Especially the olden day, like the past generation, because last time it's more traditional, right? Okay, if I'm together, then you stick through thick and thin no matter what. Now it's like who cares? You don't wanna divorce you, it's just like a lot more easier. To
correct
do
lah.
this,
And I think also because when all these things come along, like the emotions are all very high on everybody. I mean,
100%.
like the mom will obviously feel a lot of emotions, but the dad, as much as he's a guy, don't forget that he has emotions as well. There are a lot of men that actually experiences, and because men are not trained to express themselves, so they end up like not saying anything, and then like they just like absorb all the negative energies and everything like that. And then one day they just go crazy. You never know lah. They might just like, okay, I'm done. Like, I've had enough lah. So I think it's fair lah for both husband and wife to really sit down, have a good conversation about it. Make sure it's a good space, please. Don't like, have after a long day of work, then after have this
that's the
yeah.
worst.
So just have like just honestly lah, we are flexible enough that I'm sure we can just take one day off. Just take one day off, go to the beach, go and staycay together, whatever lah. Then just hang out, be in a space. Yeah, both of you are comfortable, both of you are happy, and then open this conversation and I think the one thing is also like don't have judgments as well. I cannot say that I'm like, the best at it. Like there are times when my husband says something, right? Then I'm like, oh my God, like you're sorry, trying to say that like you're going to do this or you're going to do that and things like that. But actually it's not true. I think it's also good lah for you to be open enough for them to actually express themselves and vice versa lah. Yeah, so I also have to remember to do that. And but have that open conversation. I think it'll make your life a lot easier, like to a certain extent. And then because at least after that, actually it's not that difficult to have an open conversation with my spouse. Like, let's have it a little bit more often and things like that. Yeah, then I think it will help lah. Then you less stress.
Yeah. Oh my God, this is good. Yeah, this is really good. Like why I say it's good, right? Because like
Parents, ma.
and also like sometimes it's like people listen to this podcast and stuff like that. Yes, we talk about business, talk about production, sales, whatever it is, right? But I truly believe like work and life is always intertwined, right?
Yes.
So then if we only talk about work, but then sometimes we neglect the personal relationship portion, and that will take a toll on the work, right? Yeah. So
definitely.
like even if you are someone that's damn bloody good at closing, but then it's like if your personal is messed up, it will affect.
Yes,
right.
of
And
course.
I think that's why like this conversation is so important.
Yeah.
And it's so much value and gold nuggets, especially coming from someone that has been through that.
I'm still going through it.
And still going through it, right? So it's really full. So before we end off, so I always ask this question, and the question is, looking back like 16 years ago, and now knowing what you know now, what would be that one thing that you would either do differently, or if you feel like there's nothing you do differently, what would be the one thing that you wish you had known or knew earlier?
Known earlier.
Yeah.
I think to a certain extent, it's still probably in terms of like the business front itself. I had a lot of bad managers. I really had a lot of bad managers before, or bosses in that aspect. And I didn't have a very good first 10 years lah, I would say. And so I'm not trying to say that have a good manager or anything like that, but I think in a way, I'm sorry to say, but like I think our our career is a little bit lonely.
Mm.
It really is. Because to a certain extent, a lot of things still dependent on yourself. As much as we all want like the perfect manager, but that person never exists. And I think like at least for myself, I've come to a space where I don't, not that I don't depend on my manager, I can't really say that, but in a sense it's like, make sure that you know where your journey is, know your end goal, and then from there chart out what is it that you actually want from this, how to actually build up your business and follow through on that. Like I realize even for myself, I've changed my end goal so many times when I was younger because you feel like, I don't know, like maybe I guess in that sense we didn't really have like this mission and vision for our career. It was more like we came in with a thought that, I want to do this,
Yeah.
I want to earn this and everything. And nobody actually taught us about having like a vision or a mission for our career. And I think that's something which is a bit that lacking in a way, because if we don't actually have that in mind, then I think a lot of times we just make decisions in terms of how we want to run our business and how our relationship is with our boss and everything like that, right? And then we get very judgmental, we get very emotional and everything like that. And it kind of affects the decisions that we want to make overall. Whereas if let's say we really have our vision and our mission in mind, for example, right, then at least we know that like it's so much easier to make our decisions.
Yeah.
Because in that sense it's like, this is my mission, this is my vision. So now if I have to decide between doing A or doing B, which one actually gets me closer to my end goal? I think it makes our life so much easier. And on top of that, it stops all this finger pointing as well. Because I'm sure, like I know for a fact that I pointed a lot of fingers to my bosses back then. Like, this lousy boss, go and teach me this kind of sales technique actually doesn't work, or worse, it's actually detrimental for my clients, blah blah blah, that kind of thing, right? And we tend not to take responsibility. I'm very into this whole responsibility that, yeah, we don't take responsibility, that actually it's also our own issues. We didn't do our due diligence and everything. We just like take it as, okay, you're my manager, what you should know. And then we don't take it upon ourselves, and we're not actually being very adult about it. We're becoming like children. Yeah, so I feel like if we actually have that end goal in mind, then we also take responsibility. We also know that the decisions of like whether should I do A or B, right, will be so much clearer, because we know that that is our ultimate end goal. And whether or not our boss says yes or no or whatever things like that doesn't really matter, because either way, anyway, if your end goal is legit, is ethical, it actually it's for the good of the world, I would say, right? Then honestly speaking, your decision A and B, right, most likely also will be good decisions. It's just which route you want to take. You know what I mean? So it won't put you in a bad ground. So I don't think your manager will fault you for it and things
Right.
like that lah. Yeah, but at the end of the day, I also feel like, then it really doesn't matter, because your boss can be angry with you or whatever, but at least you are taking full responsibility that whatever decisions that you make, ultimately you only answer to yourself, because your end goal is your end goal. It's not your boss's end goal. He has his own end goal. Yeah, so I think that's the thing that I'm a lot clearer about now compared to before. Yeah, so that even though you say like, like I think a lot of y'all will like say that, yeah, I've been in the industry for 16 over years, but actually I only knew this like in the last couple of years when I literally just came back to work, just because of the fact that I've been there before. And then when I came back, when I finally decided, okay, I'm not going to forego this career. I love this career. I still enjoy this relationship that I can build up with my clients and everything, right? I love it, and I want to continue being here and doing what is good and everything, right? So before I came back, I already knew that like, okay, I need to do things differently. And what was the one thing that I did differently was I knew that like I needed a proper end goal now. So it's redundant of whether or not the person, my bosses are good or not. It's redundant whether or not my clients are good or not. At the end of the day, I just know that this is my end goal. I'm working towards it. So even like, I mean, I'm sure I've shared with you before, there are moments where I had like bad fights with bosses and everything, right? But ultimately, I told you also, I said, doesn't matter. Fight lor, like, so what? Like, ultimately, that's not my end goal anyway. So I know my end goal. So as long as I just continue moving forward, don't need to bear grudges. Just 40 years already, let it go, man. Like I have not a lot of decades to like be angry about it lah. So like just move on. And I think that would be something that I would have told myself like 16 years ago lah. Yeah, because I really feel like my growth is starting really now, like knowing that it's that it will be different from before. Yeah, so that's for myself.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Begin with the end in mind.
Yes, always lah. Then at least you know where you're going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Thank you, Alvina.
No worries. Happy to be
Alright.
here.